Hello, welcome to our next interview. I'm Friederike Zelke, Editor-in-Chief of the Cloud Report, and today I'm joined by Carsten Samaschke, CEO of Cloudical and a technical expert today. And I'm very happy to talk with Chang Li from HashiCorp. Please introduce yourself at first, and then we start going into content.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. I'm Chang Li. I'm doing product marketing for at HashiCorp and mainly cover the emerging products that include Nomad and Waypoint. And thank you for having me here today.
It's a pleasure. So last week, the KubeCon happened and Nomad was a big topic at the KubeCon from HashiCorp. And maybe, yes, tell us something about Nomad.
Sure. Let me share my slides and in the presentation mode. Yeah, I'm super excited to talk about Nomad today and also spend some time to share like what's the latest with Nomad regarding to the Nomad 1.1 release. So Nomad is one of the core products that HashiCorp offers, but in general, the value of the HashiCorp tools is really helping organizations to deliver their application, their workload to the multi-cloud environment in a consistent manner. And to do that, to build a common workflow across the critical layers, 4 critical layers throughout the infrastructure stack, including provisioning, security, networking, and runtime. So today we're going to focus on the runtime layer, which is Nomad is a HashiCorp solution. But first of all, what is Nomad, right? For people that are now very familiar with our product, so Nomad is a simple and flexible workload orchestrator to help organizations to automate their application deployment workflow. So there are many reasons that people pick Nomad as their orchestrator of choice for their company, for their team, or for their projects. But it eventually comes down to 2 kind of fundamental strengths that Nomad uniquely has, which is simplicity and flexibility. So the simplicity aspect really enable organizations to deploy and manage containers at any scale without additional complexity or a lot of mental overhead or mental overload. And the flexibility aspects really help organizations to also modernize their legacy applications without the need to containerize all of them or to rewrite all of them. So the guiding principle of Nomad or behind Nomad is really about having just one single unified orchestration solutions for any applications. That includes containers, non-containerized applications, and also batch applications, you name it. The goal behind is to provide kind of design or provide a single and very simple and lightweight layer that customers can just integrate that with their existing infrastructure. So compared to a complete overhaul and embracing a complete different ecosystem, Nomad allows customers to just integrate, start with their existing infrastructure, and then gradually expand and modernize or migrate. So through this way, customers can enable this called incremental modernization or incremental containerization journey. And throughout the journey, they just need to maintain one tool, like one orchestrator, having one common workflow, instead of supporting multiple tools, process, and systems. Also, Nomad provides the same ease of use operational experience, no matter where it gets deployed. It can be deployed in customers' on-prem data centers, the same way as it deployed or managed in any cloud. And also for developers, the big benefit here is for developers, no matter where they want to deploy their application, say they initially started on-prem and later they want to migrate their application to cloud from one cloud, maybe later to another cloud, this experience is almost transparent to developers. So they really don't like kind of the abstraction that Nomad provide really allow them to don't care what are the underlying infrastructure is running for their application. So let's kind of double click on the kind of the common use cases that Nomad support. We see like most customers adopting Nomad normally start from the simple container orchestration use case, right? Deploy and manage my containers for the organization. And for any infrastructure tools, when organization decided to pick one versus other, there's a set of kind of objective metrics or KPIs, whatever you say, or criteria they would evaluate. This is especially true for like operations teams or DevOps, SRE teams. And these are the three areas that people shared with us, like Nomad really excel or stands out. The first one is time to value, right? How long does it take for me to like do a proof of concept in my dev test environment? How long does it take to deploy my orchestrator, to migrate my applications, and eventually push to production? So the time matters here because every company wants to ship to the market as fast as they can to really unblock the developer velocity. So Nomad is designed as a single binary. It can be either configured as server or client. So very simple like architecture really allow the operators to easily deploy that into their individual specific infrastructure environment and allow them to easily migrate applications. Also, it's simply integrated with other HashiCorp tools like Vault, which is a standardized solution for secret management, and also console for service networking for both containers and non-containerized applications. So the second piece is around adoption or onboarding developers, because eventually people choosing or implement Orchestrator is to provide a way to decouple the developer workflow and operator workflow, allow developers to have the full control about for their application lifecycle management, really don't need operator being blocker in the middle of the workflow. So allow developers to directly consume the orchestrator is the key here, to have like a self-serve workflow for developers. Then how long does it take for developers to learn learn a new tool or orchestrator and deploy their application is a critical metric. Like Nomad, our customers share the experience like from a couple of hours, sometimes even less than 30 minutes, a developer that are new to Nomad are able to deliver their, deploy their first application onto Nomad. I think the third one, probably the most critical one for teams that want to stay resource efficient and don't want to dedicate a fully staffed team to just dedicate on managing their orchestrator, especially for self-host platform, right? They don't want to just dedicate a team to manage that, but still they want to stay lean, but also want to support like hundreds of developers or thousands of applications, and Nomad really provide that capability. I think what we heard from customers, regardless whether it's a small startup, like 1 month SRE, like one SRE, to a big organization, later we can share the story like that, big organizations, thousands of applications, we see normally the team that manages Nomad is very lean, like from 1 to 4 people, and can support a really reliable container platform. And the second use case, this is very unique to Nomad compared to other solutions, is Nomad is not just limited to the Docker ecosystem. It can also onboard and migrate, support the non-containerized applications like Java, Windows, those legacy applications, which still have a very large footprint in most of the organizations today. So the benefit is really kind of obvious. The first benefit is about how to get immediate results. People use Nomad without containerizing or modernizing their applications. They can realize immediate benefit. So these immediate benefit, including like reduce infrastructure costs by densely scheduling the applications through bin packing, this type of orchestrator algorithms, right? And the second kind of key benefit is about having this zero downtime deployment strategy by leveraging like blue-green canary deployment strategies that offered by the core kind of modern orchestrator. So these applies to non-containerized applications. And the beauty of that is just one orchestrator, one common workflow. You can bring your kind of legacy application as well as your modernized application. You can allow organizations to containerize at their own pace.
So sorry for the interruption. It is possible to orchestrate containers and non-containerized application at the same time with the same tool?
Yes, exactly. Okay. This is kind of the unique technical capability that Nomad delivers compared to other solutions.
And I'm sorry, just to go to one point, you mentioned that the legacy applications maybe doesn't need to be modernized or something or changed to use it within Nomad. Can you tell us more about how Nomad integrates legacy applications?
Sure. So as you mentioned, it's either some organization choose just to say, keep the legacy application in its original form, or it just sometimes just take a long journey, like a multi-year journey to migrate or containerize all their existing applications, right? For these type of applications, Nomad has this kind of task driver. So the task driver is a flexible task driver. You can specify different task driver to support different type of applications. For example, we have Docker as a task driver to support Docker runtime, so support Docker containers, right? Or like containerd to support containers. But we also have Java task drivers to support a standalone Java application, or Windows task drivers or exec drivers that to support any kind of standalone application binary. So this is a part that from a technical perspective made Nomad very unique and flexible, because it doesn't just limit it to like Docker runtime. So moving on to like, I think a lot of this is the kind of the most asked questions, like, oh, how does Nomad compare to Kubernetes? So I think I'll just address that, you know.
Yeah, thank you. I was just thinking about.
I'm reading your mind. I know, like most of the time, I got the question right away. It's like, tell us about how you compare or different from Kubernetes. So, I think probably from the last 1 or 2 years, the orchestrator market get matured very fast, and also the adoption from organizations is also matured very fast. Like, I think maybe 3 years ago, when you survey the organizations, there only a small footprint of the containers or orchestrators in their environment, very small percent of workload, maybe still in dev test environment. But today, I think they will have almost every organizations have containers and orchestrators in their production environment, and the percentage of the workload is growing rapidly. We kind of observe is organizations have moved beyond kind of a hype-driven deployment. It's like, oh, I just need container, I just need orchestrator. But now I think we're seeing organizations are now picking orchestrators really based on the merit of the orchestrator, meaning whether it fits my application, if it's my team, my budget, they evaluating orchestrator now in a more objective ways. So this is that's why we kind of observing a multi-orchestrator pattern. This is exactly kind of emerged kind of pattern for larger organizations when different teams or different projects choose leveraging both Kubernetes and Nomads for its own strengths. So we see is Kubernetes, people a lot of times leveraging that for greenfield projects, especially kind of leveraging the powerful ecosystem that Kubernetes provide for a lot of cutting edge use cases like serverless, machine learning, AI, big data, where Kubernetes itself is also heavily invested in. So compared to Nomad, people leveraging Nomad for use cases like have a mix of application, including non-containerized Windows and containers, and also brownfield applications, especially if they have to run, say the workload have to run on bare metal machines where they can leverage Nomad for the operational simplicity that's running on-prem. And also the use cases, people really appreciate, kind of value the Nomad strengths of just core scheduling capabilities. So they're using Nomad to schedule applications like, you know, the service, the batch jobs that are just purely from core kind of mature workloads in their environment and have less dependency on the sprawling ecosystem. So I think this slide probably just summarized what we observed through organizations, like some of the kind of the common patterns or characteristic of how they adopting both tools. But I think the general gist is, or theme is, people realize this is almost like every industry, like no one tool fits all. And orchestrator is now the end goal. The end goal, what really matters is the applications that are running on top of it. So orchestrator should be chosen by what your application is, right? Why it fits your project.
Okay, one question from my side, just to summarize that, when we ask ourselves which kind of consumer would ultimately go for Nomad, it would basically be those kind of consumers being in a more legacy oriented environment as of now, not from the mindset, but from the technology side, because Nomad would basically give them, if I understand you properly, would basically give them a nice and quick approach and nice and quick solution towards basically modernization of their infrastructure and of their applications. Is that right?
Yeah, this is one kind of one major reason for people choose Nomad at the first place. For example, we have customers, Epic Games. They actually for their modern applications, the team leverage Kubernetes, but they still have a lot of legacy Windows applications. The team said, Nomad is a better fit for these type of applications because it's gonna take a long time for us to migrate all our legacy applications. But another aspect is about the small budget, like small, medium-sized team or organizations. They really don't have these Kubernetes projects normally require like high budget, high staff to really support, or sometimes a long timeline or long-term timeline to justify or to support the complexity and ROI of Kubernetes. But for some smaller size, either projects or team, they look at the fast time to value to support their containerized applications. Then they just adopt Nomad because this is a better fit. So I would say there are two aspects, right? Legacy applications, but also like fast time to value for their containers.
In specific scenarios, the TCO, the total cost of ownership, could actually be lower when using Nomad instead of using Kubernetes and doing everything by hand, as many organizations do, because it is to some extent fancy or challenging, which is a good thing, but not if it's about time and about being fast onto the market, right?
Yes, exactly. It depends on what's the use case. If you're really kind of looking for the use case that leveraging the powerful ecosystem, right? I mean, there's an ocean of tools in the Kubernetes ecosystem, grows really fast. If you want to leverage that for their cutting edge use cases, I think Kubernetes is a choice. But for a lot of customers that choosing Nomad say, we just want to get our containers up and running. We have a less dependency. We just need one or two kind of ecosystem tools from the leading vendors, right, from the ecosystem space, which Nomad already have that integration solution. We have less dependency on the other emerging use cases. Then Nomad is their choice because we just don't need that kind of many features that Kubernetes provide. So it's purely, I think it's a nature of the application, the nature of the project, and nature of the team to drive that decisions.
Okay. One more aspect I'd like to hear about a bit is basically when you look at Nomad today and basically look forward, I don't know, a year or 2 years from now, where do you see Nomad in terms of development as well as market reception? Is there something that you are perhaps able to talk about that has not been already released in the product?
Sure. This is a great question. So we think Nomad is gradually establishing its position as a solid alternative to Kubernetes. And so, or for customers that can just afford one orchestrator based on their team size or company size, this is an alternative solution to Kubernetes. And also for large organizations, this is a supplement to Kubernetes tool because it accommodates the use case that Kubernetes couldn't support. But I think the long-term, vision for us is managed services, because this is just an unstoppable trend, or people, it's much easier to leverage in the managed cloud, the managed services like either managed Kubernetes services to simplify their operational challenges, and also just to offload operational the challenges to the platform itself and allow developers just develop their applications. So managed Nomad will be a focused area, like Nomad team is heavily invested on. We have this cloud offering on the roadmap, and we hope to ship that to our community, our customers soon.
Cool. I have one last question before Friederike again takes over. I have a bit of a developer background and a bit of also engineering background. So one obvious question to me is, how open is the product in terms of integrating that into other tools? Obviously with regards to the HashiCorp toolchain, but also with regards to other, perhaps even competitor-driven toolchains. How open is it?
It's very open. So I think this comes back to the principle of HashiCorp tools. It's as open as extensible as possible, because HashiCorp to try to now be opinionated. It's try to have now opinionated about technology, but it's actually just want to establish. So I think one of our kind of principles that workflow, now technology. It's meaning we want to provide a workflow that works for your team or development team, but now being opinionated about the technology. So that's why if you look at the Nomad architecture, it's just focusing on the scheduling itself. It doesn't require a different kind of networking model. So that's why people say, oh, I can just directly integrate with my existing infrastructure, because even the networking model, we don't need 3 different virtual networks like Kubernetes require. Also, it has the flexible task driver, which allow you to integrate. You can actually allow customers to develop their own custom task driver to support their own applications. This is what we see, like the Windows task, one of the popular Windows task driver, the Windows IS, is actually contributed by Roblox, one of our Nomad customers, because they want to support their legacy Windows applications. Nomad provide that flexibility. We also have like device plugins, which allow you to support different like CPU or GPU, those type of things. So Nomad is designed from day one to be really open and extensible, allow customers to integrate instead of, like reinvent your infrastructure, like come embrace the different new system approach.
Cool, thank you. In the beginning, you mentioned a new release. I think it was 1.1. Maybe you can talk about a little bit more about that.
Sure, yeah. So real quick before I jump into 1.1, here's some like examples of the Nomad customers that are public talk about their Nomad stories or Nomad journeys, and just quickly mention a few kind of examples. You probably heard about these companies before, like Roblox I mentioned, using Nomad to orchestrate their global game engine to support over 150 million monthly active users. And Cloudflare, another example, right, which routes 10% of the worldwide HTTP traffic using Nomad, deploy Nomad over 200 of their edge cities to support their core applications. So this is kind of the scalability and mature use case and see people are using Nomad for in real life. So I'm happy to talk about Nomad 1.1. So Nomad 1.1 beta is released on May 3rd, and we're gonna GA very soon. So Nomad went through kind of a sprinting speed the whole last year. We shipped a lot of big features like CSI, the container storage interface, CNI, auto scaling, and also 2 kind of flagship enterprise features. One is dynamic application sizing, really allow optimized application resource utilization, which is kind of a growing issue for, I mean, in the container era, because every container is kind of, all the applications are now controlled. The resource requirement is controlled by developers, and there are just a lot of over provisioning happen. It's really to address that challenge. And also the first kind of production ready multi-cluster federation deployment features. So for 1.1, the team now is really about it's not about chasing the next shiny big features, but it's really doubling down, spend time to double down on the scheduling flexibility and further improve the operational simplicity to improve the quality of life for operators. So it's really about maturing and polish and enhance the big features we shipped last year. So if we group kind of all the nice features together into 4 areas, it's about update on the scheduler to support different resource control mechanisms to drive higher cluster efficiency, and updates on cluster auto scaling and new scaling strategies to make it more flexible to fit into customer specific use case, and also CSI improvement to support the popular kind of integration with popular storage solutions like SAF for on-prem. And the last is this is a continuous investments for Nomad, is improve our UI experience, UI design, API design to simplify the operator experience. So I will maybe just talk, I think we're kind of run out of time. I'll probably just talk about one features as an example. So memory over subscription, right? We used to just have like one value for memory. And if you request that, and the scheduler will reserve that amount for your application. And that's an issue if you have a spiky kind of memory usage pattern for your applications, then you really have to reserve that memory for the worst case scenario. Otherwise, you will just run into out of client side, out of memory alert or incidents. But adding a maximum, a different, like setting a self limit and adding the maximum allows you to just reserve for the normal usage, and when allow you to go up to a high watermark when you reach into this spiky situation. So the very kind of obvious benefit is when allowed to have memory over subscription, allow you to schedule your applications in a more densely way. So you drive higher cluster efficiency. You don't need to reserve for the worst case. You just reserve for the normal case. And we actually shipped that for Docker containers the past year, but now we're extending memory over subscription to also non-containerized applications. So for all your applications now, you can enjoy memory over subscription to enjoy all the benefits it provides. And we have a lot of other features if you want to know more. And one way is to join our webinar or read our announcement blogs and feature blogs to get all the details you want. And if you have any question, I'm happy to answer now.
I think going more into detail would spread the time for now. So thank you for your insights and the information about Nomad. Thank you for your time. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Same here. Nice to meet you, everyone. I enjoyed the conversation a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.